All right, afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Schlancer, and I'm a second-year MBA student at MIT Sloan. I'm proud to be here today to introduce you to the Fanalytics panel sponsored by Precision Market Insights. Today, we have a very distinguished panel of guests with us. We have Stephanie Bauer-Marshall from Precision Market Insights with Verizon. We have Mr. Jared Smith from Ticketmaster. We have Mr. Neil Glatt from the New York Jets. And we have Bob Bowman from Major League Baseball Advanced Media. Our panel today will be moderated by Darren Ravel from ESPN. At any time during the panel, if you'd like to tweet a question for the panelists, you can use the hashtags SSAC and also use the hashtag ball, please, so we can make sure we get that to the right place. And with that, I'll hand it over to Darren Ravel.
Thank you so much. I did not tell these guys any questions beforehand so that we could kind of keep it lively, but congratulations to those of you in the room, because I think Fanalytics is going to yield the most jobs out of any analytics platform in the coming years. And one of the reasons is, as you'll come to understand here, we want to find out a lot about the fans, but we just are not there yet in terms of what we can get. So I want to start it off by going to Bob first. Can you guys each tell me what we know about fans' behavior and what you want to know?
Well, we know that every fan loves baseball ahead of every other sport. And then, first of all, we think that's true. Second of all, that we know when they do things online, we know generally who they are if they buy something. But if they don't buy something, and if they don't register, we just generally know patterns, demographics, things like that, and not specific information. And at baseball stadiums, what we're embarking upon now is trying to go completely digital with our tickets. So everyone, when they walk in the stadium, hopefully it'll be on their phone. So whether you're 12 years old or 82 years old, everyone's still carrying a phone, and we'll actually know when Johnny or Susie or William is arriving at the stadium.
Where are we on digital now? How many?
Well, right now we're about, of the tickets we sell online, about 80% of them are truly digital, and 20% are still put in the mail, will call, pickup, things like that. And that used to be 40%. Working with our partner Ticketmaster and with TDC, we've really made a big push to get everyone to digital.
But they can be digital, and you still don't know what the end point is.
Because right now, the only way we'll really know who they are is if they actually use a credit card, which is not really conducive because it's one credit card and 4 tickets. What does that mean? Or a phone. And the mobile...
Put it to the passbook.
Yeah, passbook, or even just store it on your phone. We can send you a barcode at TDC, Ticketmaster, send you a barcode, or use passbook, or use MasterPass, which is coming out. There are all sorts of PayPal, all sorts of mobile solutions available. And once we get it on the phone, which I think is going to be the preferred way to carry a ticket around, because you can use that barcode to get your food and drink inside the stadium, then we'll know who, at least start with who's at our stadium and how often they come and what they do in the stadium. To us, that's the most important task that we're on right now, because we want people to go to baseball games. Obviously, we think that's the best foot forward, and we're getting to know more and more, but we're starting from a pretty low level. Obviously, we know season ticket holders, and the clubs do a great job with that, but people who go to 1 game or 2 games, we know precious little.
Okay, that was about a minute too long just for you guys.
All of us took a thing down. We all said we wanted to talk, so you didn't.
It's a good one. Neil, what do we know about Jets fans? What do you seek to know?
Yeah, I think similar to what Bob said, when it comes to season ticket holders or ticket buyers generally, we know a fair amount about them. And when there is the issue, though, who is the end user? And we'd love to learn more about that. The great thing is, if you ask them, so we do a fair amount of survey work, they will tell you. They're interested, Jet fans in particular, but all NFL fans, I think all sports fans have strong opinions about not only the team performance, but what they expect from the experience. When they go into a stadium, they're now investing a fair amount of money to go. They're investing certainly a fair amount of time. And so when we ask the questions, what are you interested in terms of fan experience? What are you interested in terms of merchandise? What are you interested in terms of online offerings? They will tell you. But right now, it's difficult to address that to the individual. As Bob said, it's more trends, and we'll take that data, and that data is pretty directional and helpful to then have different offerings. The next generation will be, how do you target that to the individual themselves based on what their either spending patterns are, their activities when they walk in a building, if they're willing to share that information with you. and then really have the tailored offerings that will.
And this year, hopefully, you left out the additional comment lines, because that
Right,
might not be.
right. Well, actually, the qualitative stuff's actually pretty helpful.
Jared, I know that you guys have invested big into analytics with partnerships and new offerings for your.
And built out a dedicated group within the company for the first time. to
Right.
do it.
So what do you have now available, and what do you need?
You know, what we have is a lot. I don't think there's ever been a moment in time that we know more about the person who's buying the ticket than we have today. So generally speaking, I think we've got a pretty good picture of the fan. I think, you know, Bob and Neil both talked about we'd love to extend that knowledge base into what they're doing at the stadium. And that'll round out a bunch of the information that we have about, you know, what they're doing, what the patterns are, and how we market better to them. But the bigger issue for us is not what we know about the people who are buying, it's about knowing who is in the stadium, right? It's the classic, the average number of tickets per order is 2.7, you know, it's 2.5 to 3 tickets per order, and we know the person who bought the ticket, but we don't know the other 2 people. And through technology, a bunch of different solutions, both, you know, simple and sophisticated, we're creating ways to identify who those other 2 people are, and that the value of that is data, right? It's the opportunity to say, I got, in Neil's case, 70,000 people in my stadium, but I know who a third of them are. There's no telling how you can monetize the other 2/3 when you identify them.
Tell us why Verizon's here and what you do in terms of the analytics.
You guys couldn't have teed it up better for me. Thank you. So Precision Market Insights from Verizon, we're able to fill in the gap in a lot of those places. So combining location data, so we know who's in and around that stadium or that venue, and we can post all sorts of attributes around that. So whether it's demographic or behavioral, we can help you understand your fans better by using that data. So it's not survey data, it's really census level data on our consumers.
What's happening? What do you have now, and what do you hope to get to?
So today we're able to use location data in an aggregate anonymous format, right? You can do all sorts of look-alike modeling and understanding so you can market to your consumers better. And then moving forward, we'll be able to help you target those consumers. So going from insights to more actionable insights through the mobile device and other channels, to be honest.
A year ago, Bill Simmons hosted this panel, and Jonathan Kraft of the Patriots said that he wasn't convinced yet that they were going to go full Wi-Fi. But then 6 months later, they were doing full Wi-Fi, or much more than he seemed to let on. So, Bob, what's different with you guys at Advanced Media is, unlike the other sports leagues, which are basically saying, you teams, you try it out, you decide how far you want to go Wi-Fi, and as I understand, it's about $8 million to completely Wi-Fi something from scratch. Baseball together is investing, and you guys are leading it up. What does that mean, that you can all do it? All the parks are kind of moving towards the same thing with similar partners at the same time.
Yeah, our own view is that the park, you know, we have 81 home games, and that park has to be, the theater in front on the grass is obviously second to none. It's a terrific experience. But it's not just 12 and 14 and 16-year-olds. It's people even as old as I am. They want their phone, whether they need it or not. They want their phone, and they want it to work, and they want to be able to send up texts. And if you're trying to get people excited, you want them to be able to send a photo, send a short video, whatever it may be, to all around to their friends and everything. And so without a distributed antenna system, a DAS system, or a Wi-Fi system that are complementary, you go to 40,000, even 40,000 at a baseball stadium, or 50,000, not to mention 70,000. You know, at MetLife Stadium, it is just really tough to
You
get
need
a
like
signal.
400 access points or something like
It
that.
varies from stadium to stadium. You know, the expanse of the stadium is one issue. The tiering of the stadium is another issue. The density is what I'm really getting at. The density will drive that. But yeah, you need a lot. We have been fortunate to partner with Verizon and T-Mobile, our wireless solution partner in baseball, as well as AT&T. So we have all three actively involved. It's in their interest to do this. These are their devices in the main. They want connectivity, and so they've been great partners. But it is a complicated process, one that takes a lot of survey work, trying to get to the right level, and a lot of faith and a lot of hard work on behalf of the clubs that are doing it, as well as the three principal carriers that are helping us.
How many stadiums will we have opening day
I think-
adequate real Wi-Fi?
I think we'll be at 6 on opening day. That'll be good. That'll be very good. Some will be better than others. It is an evolving process, and it's going to take for us to do every stadium. It will take us through the 2014 year. It takes 2 years to do, to plan and scope and make and install. It's not like it's a process that ends. As we all know with technology, you finally get there, and then by the time you're finished with Stadium 30, you're back to Stadium 1 because they need a refresh.
Neil, let's talk about you. Obviously, with fantasy football, people feel comfortable in front of their computer, looking at things. I think it's probably been 5 years since it was the automatic reloading of fantasy scores, and then people kind of watch the games and watch their points at the same time. It's very comfortable. How much do you feel like, and you do have Wi-Fi, but how much do you feel like you're battling against the TV product? Or at least someone who's saying, I'm on my couch and I can get better reception and it's just good enough for me.
Look, I think the TV experience is a great experience, and even season ticket holders are watching half of the games on television, so it really is terrific.
What does that mean, the season ticket holders are watching?
They're only going to half the games. All the road games they're hopefully watching on TV.
Okay.
And as it relates to going to the stadium, I still think that is the premier experience. But what you need to do there, I think the Wi-Fi and making sure things are available on their devices, I think that's almost the starting point. To me, you need to take advantage of the spectacle of being in a 50,000 seat stadium or 70,000 seat stadium. How do you bring that crowd energy to life? How do you have other offerings that relate to the mobile and certainly, but I think we want people looking down if they want to check out their fantasy scores, that's fine, but I want them looking up. I certainly want them looking up at the field, but I want to take advantage of the scoreboard technology and the other things that you really only can do in a mega venue like a stadium or an arena.
I believe at Ticketmaster, your CEO, Nathan Hubbard, was here last year, and he mentioned
He
something.
didn't cause trouble, did he?
Probably. But I think he mentioned something about a direct call out on Facebook is worth $6 and a direct call out on Twitter is worth $20. Tell me what that means.
Yeah, we've developed integrations with all of the major social media networks over the last couple of years, and it's turned out to be one of the most powerful ways for us to kind of close that gap. One of the huge problems that we as an industry still face is an awareness problem. And ultimately, that leads to a problem selling inventory. If you look at just the portfolio that Ticketmaster has, just the Ticketmaster client base, 25% of our sports clients' tickets go unsold. So just Ticketmaster, there's 50 million sports tickets that go unsold. Unused varies dramatically, between the leagues on season tickets that are already sold. But if we got 50,000 tickets to go unsold, you still have a broad awareness problem, and social's been one of the things that we've invested heavily in to close that gap.
What do people need to say for it to be on Twitter, for it to be worth $20?
They're not saying much, right? All we've done is basically pipe into the purchase experience an opportunity for them to share, either on Facebook or on Twitter, that they're going to that event.
Is that customizable?
The text is customizable. We auto-populate what the actual tweet says, and they can make a change. But for all intents and purposes, they're clicking a button that says, "Hey, post to my Facebook wall that I'm going to this event." So the stats that Nathan gave you were between $5 and $6. It fluctuates month to month. Every time somebody clicks that box on Facebook, we see about $5 or $6 come back in direct visits from people that clicked on that link on somebody's Facebook wall and came back in. On Twitter, the number is much higher. Per tweet, but we see a lot more activity on Facebook versus Twitter.
And that's because people are trained in the immediacy of Twitter? I mean, like, they're more likely to find urgency with Twitter, and so they'll click?
I'm not sure we can answer that yet. I'm not sure we can answer that yet. It's very interesting that the people who are coming through Twitter are spending more money. It's also interesting the percentage of people that are using Facebook to broadcast, and I think that has a direct relationship to, hey, I want the people that I know and are friends of mine to know that I'm going to the event versus, I use this as a public forum of a different kind.
Well, Facebook's for Aunt Rhonda.
That's right. That's right.
No offense.
But it's been a great tool. Social's been a great tool for us.
Obviously, privacy is an issue. You're collecting a lot through your network at Verizon. What is game and what is not game?
So we spent a lot of time caring for privacy, right? We're not just precision market insights for Verizon, right? We want you all using your phones. We want you staying with us and not going to another carrier. And what we did was we took a really careful approach in terms of transparency, choice, and control. And so being very clear to the consumer, hey, this is the data that we're using. We're using location data. It's not GPS. We're using mobile web usage and application usage data, and it's all aggregated and non-personally identifiable. And then we pull that up together to create the insights that we provide. And we also give them choice. So if you don't want to participate, you don't have to. You can exercise that choice and choose not to.
How hard do you make it to not participate? How many check marks do I have to uncheck?
There's not a lot. It's very easy. You can call an IVR if you're not so web challenged, or as some people might be, or you can just go online, sign in, and check a box. It's very easy, and it's in multiple places.
Bob, there's a company in Cupertino you guys have a great relationship with, rhymes with Bapple, that, MLB at Bat, highest grossing sports app for, 4 years running?
Well, since the start. We were
Okay.
there on the first phone.
What do you possibly know about someone who goes to the iTunes store and purchases at Bat? And do you know if they're a repeat consumer? Do you know where they are? Apple, Nike, Microsoft, they're kind of in the same, we don't share even if we're your partner. So how's that
Yeah,
work?
well, as we all know, Apple doesn't give us any information about any identifiable information, no names, no nothing. We have ID, we have a unique ID, so we know which device is watching a game or using at bat. And if that unique ID does it 2 years in a row, we'll know they're a repeat customer.
Do you know how long they're watching a game for?
Oh, sure.
Oh, you do know that, okay.
Because it's our media framework. So once they're
Got it.
in our app, we know all that. We know, this ID did this, and we know what this ID likes, and so we can target information to that person. If he or she is watching a lot of Red Sox games, we will target something to him or her a little bit that's more Red
And
Sox.
how do you target? Because you don't necessarily have their email connected to their
No,
ID?
it's all on the device. So right now, inside App Bat, you have a localized option, and about 90% of our downloads last year, 7 million downloads last year, about 90% of them localize it to a favorite team. And this year, you'll be getting alerts from that favorite team. And if you sign up for the Red Sox, he or she will be getting alerts from the Red Sox that are the ones that you want. You go to
In the app environment.
in the app environment. And so we still don't know who it is. We still don't know it's Darren Ravel that's actually signed up to watch the Yankees or as a favorite team, but we're giving you information that is relevant to you based upon what you've done inside the app.
What can you share with me on viewership patterns, on how people are watching, what platforms they're watching on, how things have changed, say, in the last 2 to 3 years?
Well, the biggest change is the number of screens that are open in a house. It's at least N+1, it may be N+3. I have 2 teenagers, lucky me, and those 2 teens have 2 screens open full-time at night. Hopefully the bigger screen is doing homework, but the other screen, hopefully, and based on my son's I won't go into my son. He's doing really well. They
That's
have.
because it's not how much time you spend on the homework, it's when you're really focused. So if you watch an entire game, your team wins and you're happy, you can have 10 really concentrated.
Technology makes you efficient.
That's right. This is what I hate about the
or
March
not.
Madness studies, how much time is being wasted.
But that's the biggest
Please.
change is just all the screens that are open and how and what people do and how they consume everything. And it isn't, I think the big shift too is also they're consuming, whether it's live football, whether it's live baseball, they're consuming it on smaller devices. Than there's no, Neil said it right. I mean, there's no better experience than an HD TV. It's 12 feet from you, that's 64 inches. That's just, just blowing away in terms of how great the quality is. But more and more, obviously, people are watching live events, particularly baseball, because we play every day, and you're not always at home. Or football is once a week. You're not always home, so we will get 7 to 8 minutes on an iPhone. We will get 25 to 30 minutes on a tablet, and they will watch a live game on that. So what goes on in the home, I think, is the biggest change, but also the fact that we're all seeing live events consumed on smaller screens much more quickly than we thought. Nothing competes with TV, but it's just we're on the go. People want to consume it where they are. And if you're not on that screen, we put MLB.TV on 250 devices this year. If we're not on the screen, it's not like they're going to put their device down and go find it somewhere. I mean, certainly for the big games, Red Sox, Yankees, the rivalry games. But on a Tuesday night, if you just have 10 minutes, we better be on that screen.
Neil, Mark Cuban's been the rebel here, surprise. He does not want fans ultimately to be looking down on their devices. He wants everyone to be focused on the product right on the court. Is that realistic in these times, and where would you fall?
I think you have to offer them the choice. So, as I said a little bit earlier, I think the better experience will be looking up, both what's happening on the field and how you're being entertained around the building. But I think if somebody wants to have ready access, as we said, to their Facebook friends, if they want to upload a photo, if they want to make a phone call, if they want to text to somebody else in the stadium or somewhere else at home, they should be able to do that, and I think you have to facilitate that.
I think right now the statistics show that roughly 12 to 18% of the stadium could be online or could be hooked in at one time, and I guess your job is to build a capacity of 40, 50%. Do we know anything about that at MetLife?
The data is, it is tough to track, but that sounds kind of in that right range. And right now, they clearly are looking at devices. I think one of the things we would like to do is continue to serve them with more football-related and Jets content when they're in the stadium. So whether that's replays, we can do more in-stadium with replays and other video than we're allowed to do out of stadium as a companion to what they're doing. So we try and take, based on league rules and our broadcast agreement, so we try and take advantage of that.
How far away are we from, someone looking down on their phone? You notice something's automated, or there's someone controlling something, gives you like next 30 minutes, their concession lines are short or whatever. Here's a beer, or we know you like fries. Here's 50, something kind of that when do we drive sales?
Yeah, I don't think it's that far away. I mean, I think it's in a year or two. We're working with some location-based apps that would tell you where somebody is in a stadium. So if there's a dead area in the stadium, or there's a special offer that you want to sell hot dogs at the end of a fourth quarter because they're otherwise going to be thrown away,
Right.
That technology is pretty much there. It's really up to us to start targeting and effectuating it. To do that, you need more people to come into the app environment, and that's the way we would initially do it. To take them out of app environment, that's probably a little longer for us.
Just don't hook it up on Foursquare. I just bought 8 beers at MetLife.
Right.
What insight do you have from something that's going on? What do you guys need to see? I mean, is your job done when the ticket is sold, or when do you consider your job complete with the information that you've gotten from a fan?
And that's a great question. I mean, historically, that was when our relationship with the fan kind of stopped, right? We would sell them a ticket, and we'd grab their address, we'd stuff a couple of hard tickets in an envelope, and away we went. What excites us about kind of the move to mobile is the opportunity to extend that relationship all the way through the event, and to aid in the collection of that data in a way that it can be compiled with the ticket data and the behavioral data that we have to help our teams better market and better understand what that activity is. So I think, as Neil just said, the time when we're going to have that opportunity to see what's happening in venue from a purchasing experience standpoint is not that far away. I mean, the Washington Nationals and a few other teams this year are already starting to develop and deploy loyalty programs, for lack of a better word. A lot of the teams are going to a digital device, whether that's the phone or it's an RFID team card or whatever, that can be used for entrance and concessions and anything else that's in the stadium. All of that completes the picture of
A chip in your wrist.
the chip in
Or a
right.
chip in your phone.
Or chip in your phone.
NFC, maybe.
But that digitization of the ticket is giving us that more complete picture, and then that data becomes valuable, right? If you have fans that are coming in and spending X amount of dollars, and you know what they're buying, food and beverage, you know what they're buying for. Merchandise becomes a platform to better price, better package, right? I mean, it could lead to, hey, we know the 10,000 people that come to the stadium that are interested in the All-In Club, right? Let's target them at a certain price point to turn them from a couple of games into a 10-game buyer as part of our all-in, all-inclusive club product, whatever that is, right? But it becomes that much greater of a rounding out of the complete picture of who that prospect could be.
I got to go to Neil on this one. I was talking to a futurist, and he was saying that ultimately, 60 to 70% of the fans will get their food at their seats at various times when they want it, and the configuration of a stadium. I know you don't want to hear this because you guys are
easy to
Really,
fix configuration of the
the con-
stadium.
the config-
Very flexible.
The configuration of the stadium. Oh, I thought you just knew green and blue. The configuration of the stadium might change. Like there's going to be areas that will just potentially be kitchens instead of concessions. And so, do you think that's realistic?
I think it is. I think I would assume it's more of the remote ordering, and I think people are happy to go pick up their food. I think you don't get the technological efficiencies of having a lot of runners come to seats and handing food across aisles. So maybe there's a better configuration to handle that. I think people.
Maybe it can come up through the concrete.
Maybe, but I think I think you can get them 75% of the way there. They're happy to take a little bit of walk, stretch their legs, as long as they don't have to wait on a line. And a lot of the delay on the line, when you look at it, is somebody who gets up to the front of the line and says, didn't even think in their mind what they want to order. So I think through pre-ordering, I think you'll accomplish a lot of that. And then for premium areas, if you want to have some runners, I think having runners to service 75,000, 80,000 people will be tough.
But pre-ordering is pretty cool.
Pre-ordering,
like, I know what I want.
I think pre-ordering is terrific, and I think we should do that. And I ordered the 3 hot dogs and a soda, and I walk up in 5 minutes, and it's there, and I don't have to wait online. And that would, again, that's a convenience. It's not high tech. The ordering is high tech, but you've really made my experience a little better.
How does Verizon make money now?
Use your phones in the stadiums and without.
Does it make money? Is it in apps or just? I mean, tell
Yeah,
me
so
where the
the
money's
more
at.
applications, the more experiences that the device can power and our network can power, then obviously the more money we make. But if you think about what Precision Market Insights is really about customizing that experience, whether that's for someone like MLB or the Jets or Ticketmaster. We're able to use the understanding that we can provide on that consumer and help you provide a better experience both on the device but also in the physical world, right? So, knowing about the consumer, what they're doing outside of the stadium, so where they're going when they're not at the game, gives you greater insights into, how do I want to serve this customer when they're there? How do I want to reach them when they're not? And so, we make money off of, obviously, our network. Precision, we sell services around our analytics in terms of licensing the software and the data and all the custom analytics that we could do to help you guys understand and engage your consumers better.
And just back to that privacy point that you talked about earlier, we talked about people's willingness to fill out surveys. I think privacy is a real concern, and some people won't waive any of those rights. But I think other people, when it comes to sports, the passion they have, they will be happily opt in if they're going to get some benefits as a result of doing that. And they'll let you know if they're walking into a sponsor's store. They'll let you know if they're interacting with the team or if they're buying a jersey or whatever that is, if it's worth their while. And that's going to be the trick. So I think the technology, it may be ahead, candidly, in some cases, to what is the right marketing program to keep them excited around the team and what the Jets are trying to do.
Bob, you have an at the ballpark feature, which is typically allowed people to kind of check in. This year it's going to offer maybe a ticket upgrade if you check in, if you're there, maybe an experience. What's the power of that?
Well, we'll find out, but we think that at baseball games, which have a pace and a sort of an aura around them, that where it is a relaxing experience. It is certainly loud at times, but it's not as loud as an indoor stadium, at least not always. And people, the remote ordering will happen. Runners, Neil's exactly right. You just can't get runners inside a stadium. But remote ordering, so the line is faster. People like to stretch their legs. They like to move around. We're Americans. We're on the move, not stationary beasts. And so people like to do that. But getting through the line much more quickly, particularly if it's a cold April day or a cold September day in my hometown or in those walks of life, it is that may please people. But they can check in now. We check in and we'll let you find your friends and reward you. And then ultimately, as you talked about, there will be experience upgrades, hopefully this season, that we're trying to launch it by opening day. And we should have about a dozen clubs, God willing. And it will allow the experience upgrade, not just a seat upgrade, but you talk about the ballpark of the future, the venue of the future. Increasingly, I think there's going to be more public areas. I think where people can congregate and talk with more than just the 4 people or the 3 people they came with. It'll be much more of a social scene, and particularly as we try and get the fan of tomorrow, the younger fan, they come with 2 or 3 friends, but they might like to go visit with 1,000 people who are similar to them. So I think you're going to see more public spaces and let people upgrade the experience, maybe go down to the club level and eat, which would be a fun thing for a family to do, to get down that low. And so I think we'll roll it out, and every club will do it differently, and what they think is the right thing to do to improve the fans' experience. Once they're at the stadium, and our clubs do it terrifically, you've got to over-deliver and get them to come back, or at least tell people how great it was so their friends come the next week.
How do you know the difference between a fan and a scalper bot or a broker buying in mass quantities? And if it is a broker, I mean, you guys talk negatively in terms of them, right? Because they could be fans
Not
too,
always.
just
Not
fans
always.
that distribute a large quantity of tickets.
Yeah, yeah.
Fans of something else.
Yeah, it's fans of a different kind. Look, one of the real problems that we have in the business today, more prevalent by a country mile on the music side than it is on the sports side, is the unfair advantage that is often afforded to automated computer programs that go in and kind of rush to the front of the line and keep fans from buying tickets. And historically, the solution to that has been what they call a reCAPTCHA, or that squiggly mix of words and numbers that we force you to type
That
through.
you
because
can't even read sometimes
Right, often you
anyway.
can't
I'm
even
like,
read
I'm
sometimes.
human. Is that an E or an F?
Yes, yeah,
catches.
not a great experience. So one of the best examples of the way that we're using data today through a partnership, math on our side and experience on their side with a startup out of the New York area called Solve, was to basically replace that part of the online transaction experience. And today what we're doing is basically applying algorithms through machine learning to do what they call stream processing, right? Which is aggregate a bunch of data around the IP address and the history and shopping patterns of that IP address, and how many people are coming from that certain type of activity and hitting the site at that time. And we're able to literally analyze that data in real time and say, this is very potentially a computer program and not a human being, therefore I'm going to serve them up the word that cannot be read. This is very likely a fan and not a computer program, and therefore I'm going to make that experience really easy. So I'll show a picture of a sailboat, say type sailboat, right? So separating those two on the back side so that the experience on the front side is a great example of how we can use data today that's become so sophisticated that we can crunch those numbers in real time and actually affect the experience that they have as they go through the process. That's been incredibly successful for us. We just rolled it out over the last, I guess, three months. It's on about 60-70% of our events total, on its way to 100%, and has really solved some of the problems we've had on the music side. Less so on the sports, less necessary on the sports side, but still a problem.
Darren, on that, we just got rid of capture codes because what was happening almost, and it's up to the club, of course, but almost every club is doing it because you just said it. The average person can't read it, takes 3 times to read it, and yet the bot, once they figure out what obviously they're guessing.
Can read it.
They can't read it
Right.
very well either, but they can run 5 million permutations in the time far faster than you can try 2 times to get your
Right.
thing through. So we actually got rid of them for a lot of our on sales this year, which is really the only time you need it, when there's really heavy demand and a lot of seats for sale. Because it is a lot more fan friendly, and we find that getting the real fan through much more quickly is the best antidote to these other things. But we do the IP thing as well. If we see an IP coming in and trying to buy a lot of tickets, we will slow that ID down. We send everyone through a waiting room, and the reason we do that is not just to kind of manage the flow, but also manage who might stay in the waiting room a lot longer.
Got it. I got to ask you this question, Jared. I'm sorry, I'm picking on you right now.
That's all right.
But I think there's great interest here. You guys are doing a lot now with dynamic pricing.
Yeah.
How much do you, once a team is a client, how much do you let the team kind of tell you what to do? I got an interesting call the other day saying, what's weird is that there's much more inventory, obviously, for baseball than the concert. Mm-hmm. Why don't teams try to sell a whole bunch 4 months out so that the dynamic pricing doesn't come into play so much at the end? Does a team ever say, you know what, our ticket department, we'll feel more comfortable if we sell cheap now?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that in two parts. I think as we talk to our teams, they would all love to sell out 4 months in
Exactly,
advance.
right, exactly.
And
There's a cost to doing
There's
that.
a cost to doing that. But I do think you're starting to see a trend of teams that are trying to reverse that natural trend, which is it's a $100 ticket, at the time of the on sale, and it becomes less and less and less as we get to the day of the game. That's a self-reinforcing model, right? It changes behavior. People start to wait because they know the prices are going to reduce. So we're seeing this on the sports side and on the music side that we're trying to reverse that. Our partnership with Groupon was a good example, right? That started as a partnership that was, hey, I got distressed inventory. It's a week from the event. I got to get rid of it no matter what it costs. I'm going to use Groupon as that discount model. Well, we're starting to see teams and encouraging teams to reward those types of channels up front with lower pricing, right? So the earlier you buy, the best price you get, not dissimilar from an airline model. So you're starting to see that trend change a little bit. As it relates to the second part of that question, which was dynamic pricing, we are huge proponents of it. Whether somebody uses our platform, which is called Price Master, and a part of that live analytics group that we've created, or somebody else, we think it's one of the stalwarts, one of the foundations of having a healthy business is dynamic, variable pricing on the front side, and then dynamic pricing between the time it goes on sale and the game. But once we put that model in place for a team, they're pulling all of the levers and turning all the knobs. That's completely on them to have their strategy. We're making recommendations to them. We're telling them what we think the market is doing and giving them some decision support around here's what's happening in the secondary market. But it's up to them to set up their parameters and make the decisions on their own time.
How good is your data in terms of there'll be people on Verizon and then there'll be people on other networks? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, so we
based on regions in the country or
Yep. So we obviously are measuring the Verizon audience and then taking that data and extrapolating out based on a whole bunch of different things. It could be public information and some non-public information, but extrapolating out to a more national view so that you're getting the full picture, not just on Verizon subscribers. Just to add on to the dynamic pricing, we actually have a partnership with the Phoenix Suns, and we did some testing around that. And so we were able to look at some of the events that were going on, say with the Cactus League, looking at their correlation between when there was an overlap on events. And we found that their demand was actually significantly higher when there were other games going on around the same time. And so they're able to take that information and potentially put it into whatever their pricing tool is and create different.
or even like a
dynamic.
package with two teams working together,
Yep,
which
exactly.
we've seen recently.
Exactly, and so using the insights and being able to, they kind of had a gut feel, yeah, I think that there's more people here.
Right.
But our data was able to help them really understand and prove it and actually make a business decision and implement it to help meet their business objectives.
Bob, some people say the season ticket is dead, or at least
Who says that?
Some people.
Who says that?
Go get them.
I think that there's more fragmentation of the season ticket. People break it up. We're sharing.
for
We're
sure.
doing this. I mean, the season ticket's still being bought, but it's being bought by maybe 6 people. And what used to happen was people would just sell within their community, and now maybe they throw it up on StubHub or Tickets Now or wherever. So how do you change your behavior of, because obviously you still have tickets.com.
Yes.
So how do you change your behavior of selling, or how do the teams change their behavior of selling when they know that it could be a different proposition? It's not one guy anymore.
Yeah, I think your question on dynamic pricing is one of the arrows in the quiver. We have several teams that dynamically price their entire stadium, every game and every seat. They dynamically price it. If you think about a section in a baseball stadium, you've got 400 seats.
Do fans understand that now? Because I understand on an airplane, but how do I not make my season ticket holder angry? That is that, do people ask around, what did you pay? What did you
It's
pay?
interesting because that's the principal reason. You've correctly identified, I think, one of the reasons why some clubs have been reluctant to do it, because how they treat one season ticket buyer versus another.
But does
one
that
buyer.
really happen? Do those conversations happen?
I don't know. It'd be anecdotal if I were to tell you, but I would say that you talk to the Giants or the Cardinals, who dynamically price everything. They're up. It gets to Stephanie's point. They're transparent. They say this is why we're doing it. Some days your seat may be more expensive than other days. For the season ticket holder, they may see 3 different prices on their season tickets based on what type of game it is. Maybe a Tuesday night game is one price, maybe a Saturday game is a much higher price, but the average price is the same. To sort of inform the season ticket holder, what he or she already knows, these tickets have different value. We didn't need StubHub to tell us that these certain games against certain teams on certain nights and certain months just aren't as valuable as other games. And so I think that's why a lot of teams are dynamically pricing. The better you price your primary ticket, whether it's 4 months in advance, whether it's using Groupon, whether it's dynamic pricing, all of which are being done with baseball teams for some time, all of which will expand it. Whatever the arrows in your quiver are, the better you price your primary seat, the less you need to worry about what happens in the secondary market. The more likely you are to give your seat to somebody who's actually going to go, the less likely you are to see it on some secondary market, whether it's Tickets Now or whether it's StubHub.
Neil, let's talk about the actual season ticket. If someone, you hear a lot of people saying, I'll just go on the secondary market and cherry pick. Do I really need to sit in the same seat each time? What's really the benefit? I'll just cherry pick, right? And so I assume that your ticket reps say, aren't you buying for the sense of community, the people that are around you? Because I've heard people, Jets fans specifically, get angry because, Rob just sold them on StubHub or wherever, and then that disrupts what they had hoped to get. So what is your pitch to the person who says, I'm just going to go on the secondary market?
Yeah, I think you have a number of hurdles. We talked earlier about how great an experience is staying at home. So we talked about how do we do a lot of things with technology to get people to come out to the stadium. And we think it's a great experience, and one of the things we have to figure out is there special content that you might get in stadium, whether that's audio or video, that you might not otherwise get at home?
And it's not the ref under the hood.
No,
please.
It could be. Look, ultimately, we have a competition committee that will decide those things, but there is plenty of audio conversations taking place in and around a football game that's pretty compelling content if you can do it in a way that's not anti-competitive to the teams. But the next challenge is, okay, you got me to go to the game. I want to go to the games, and I'll go to 5 or 6 of them. Why do I need to be the season ticket holder? And I think we have a better chance than in some of the other sports just because of the dollar investment given the number of games. And so what we're trying to do is every event that we do both during the season and now even during the off season, okay, if you come out to a draft party, we're going to have a special season ticket holder only draft party. If we're going to have a special event in Manhattan, maybe it's open more to the general public, but there's a special benefit that you get to being a season ticket holder. So we're trying to double down on that. If you come out to training camp, there's an area that season ticket holders, so you want to
expect more.
They expect more, and candidly, they deserve more. They really are. They're the loyal ones through thick and thin. Not that the other ones aren't, but they're paying for all 10 games. They're going year in, year out. And I've said this publicly before, they really are the lifeblood of the team. And that model with StubHub and the NFL Ticket Exchange could potentially be under challenge, and it's incumbent upon us to try and do better, for the season ticket holders, and we continue to do that. But ultimately, the world's going to change, and we'll have to continue to adopt to that. But the technology has definitely changed in football, but also in the other sports, how people buy their tickets.
Speaking of season ticket holders, have you had any peace talks with Fireman Ed?
No, we actually haven't.
You haven't?
We
Okay.
have not since.
No one tweet that. I want that.
But
nugget.
hopefully he'll still come out to the games and be a big fan, which he's always been.
You want me to weigh in on that?
On Fireman Ed? No.
I get no insider information on that.
Okay, so what haven't I asked you that I should have?
Well, let me weigh in on the death of the season ticket, which I agree with Bob is overblown. I would just say, as we look across the leagues and across the teams, maybe the definition of what season ticket is changes over time, but I think these guys are doing a phenomenal job of keeping full season equivalents up because they're being more flexible and creating better packages and targeting in more specific ways and adding benefits to make sure that their most valuable customers have things that they can't get on the secondary market. And if you look across the leagues, we don't see dramatic decreases in full season equivalents across these teams. I think they've done a phenomenal job. We were at NBA All-Star at the Technology Summit a couple of weeks ago, and the NBA's full season equivalent numbers are growing quite substantially. So I give a lot of credit to the teams to be flexible enough to see some of those patterns around that next quarter and say, we're going to create some different products. And I think that will continue over time. And we're looking at ways that we can accommodate more flexibility for the teams to be able to do those packages. You might get to a place where I've got a credit and I can use that credit however I want. If I want to take more people to a game and less people to the next game over time, there are ways and tools that are relatively easy to create for the teams to have more arrows in the quiver to keep those numbers healthy.
I want to just go, I'll start with Stephanie. What is the ideal future with fan information, fan connectivity as far as Verizon's concerned, or your company?
Yeah, so I think the first is the foundation of the network, right? So we have 4G and we have lots of technology advancements that are coming to help optimize the traffic, but whether it's on the 4G network or Wi-Fi, and I think that's sort of baseline. But then I think using the data that we have and the understanding of the consumer, whether they're in the stadium or whether they're at home watching on their couch, and knowing who they are and understanding them to really engage them and get them excited, right? I mean, fans are clearly passionate, but I think just using that data to really get them to engage. I think from a Verizon perspective, we sponsor a lot of stadiums and sports leagues and whatnot, and I think just thinking of the value that the sponsors actually bring to the experience, right? And Verizon, I think, fairly unique because of who we are, but with NFL, the applications that we provide to the consumer, and knowing them so that we're providing a great experience and personalizing that experience to that specific person on the device. It's very.
Do you make it harder for other carriers if you sponsor a stadium? Do you kind of scramble it so that it's harder for someone who didn't go
No.
in your? No, there were allegations with the Sprint, Nextel deal that they did help the track connectivity, but if you showed up with Singular, AT&T, or Verizon, good luck.
Yeah, look, we don't need to do that because we are the best network, and it's all up to them to keep their network where they need to keep their network. But I think that, clearly, as one of the nations, we have the most loyal customer base, we have the most number of subscribers, and I think that Verizon consumers pick Verizon for that reason. Right?
Jared, what's your what do you see in the future that's ideal in terms of how you watch fans and information and what you're providing to your clients?
And we've talked about a lot of it today. I think the obvious is the obvious for a reason. I think the evolution of mobile is going to drive dramatic change in how we interact with fans and the information that we can glean from their experience. And we see the shift in traffic numbers coming to our website and our properties from the desktop to the mobile device in droves, much faster than we made a transition from selling tickets in a retail environment to online. It's significantly faster than that in terms of a shift, and we're now seeing almost a third of our traffic is coming through mobile devices. Transactions trail the discovery portion of that a little bit, but that's a healthy thing for all of us because it creates a new vehicle for us to do a lot of the things that we've talked about, create loyalty and make a fan experience better, et cetera, et cetera. So mobile is where we're doing a lot of investing, and I think where you're going to see a ton of investment made by everybody that touches the industry. But I think the obvious in this case is the obvious for a reason.
I'm just going to piggyback off that for a second. You got into business with 2 MLB teams this year. I think the LA Angels Ticket Exchange launched today, the Yankees the other one.
Yep.
Is that the next iteration? I mean, obviously, they're the only 2 teams that opted out of the StubHub deal, but is that the next possible thing? Can everyone be like that, or?
Well, we'll see how these 2 go. We're happy to service them. They've been strong clients of ours in the primary market for a long time, and we love our relationship with Bob, and a lot of things that we're doing on the topics that we're talking about, we're doing closely with Bob, and I think the kind of path that he's leading them down in this move to digital is aggressively and aggressively the right way to do it. The secondary market for us is we service the NFL, we service the NBA. We've historically had a relationship with the NHL that we hope will continue for a long time, and then we've got partnerships on a bunch of different properties from college bowls to U.S. Open tennis and the likes. And you know, it's part of our portfolio. A vibrant secondary market is part of the solution here, in combination with initial pricing, dynamic pricing, and variable pricing. It's all about understanding who's buying at what price so that we can maximize the value that we're extracting from them. So we'll see how the year evolves with the Angels and the Yankees. We're happy to have them on board.
Last question for you. I got to keep going. Why do you have to break out the fees? I figure someone's going to ask in the audience afterwards.
Yeah,
Don't show me it.
We-
Why do you have to break out the fees? Is it law?
No, it's not law. No, it is not the law. Our preference would be not to break out the fees.
But
Hands down.
Want them to.
There is
teams, were the client that
the
wants
client,
to.
the clients generally, want to be able to say, I've got a $50 ticket, and it's a $50 ticket, and you include the fees, and all of a sudden it's a $60 ticket. So that change just, all of a sudden everybody's prices went up. Well,
But sometimes
the reality is,
the client is getting some of that money from the fee.
Sure. There's no mystery there. I mean, the service fees in our side of the business have become a revenue source for us and for the client, and sometimes for the artist when it's a music event. But if we think that the fan doesn't understand and add those up, and that $60 ticket is now a $60 ticket, I know what the fees are. It's just an
No, you
extension
just
of
have
the
to go
face
to the
value.
next page.
So
and by
all-
that time, you pulled out your credit card out of your wallet.
All it does is create rub in that transaction. As Bob said with CAPTCHA, we've got to remove friction from that process, and that is one of the biggest sources of friction. In the last year, we've gotten rid of printed home fees, right? $250 to biggest complaint we had. You're going to charge me $2.50 per order to use my own paper and my own ink and print my own ticket? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Well, the history of that was it helped pay for the equipment when that equipment needed to go in to scan those tickets. Well, that had long since passed, right? So if we can eliminate those fees, if we can present prices better, you're just removing friction points along that purchase path to make it easy for them to come in, understand what the price of the ticket is, and make a decision on whether or not to buy it. So I think over time, that change will happen, and it's happening in different places, and we're doing it with a lot of teams that have decided to go all in, and then use it as a marketing platform to say no fees on these tickets, and actually seen some pretty significant pickups in that. But it's not a Ticketmaster preference, and it's not a law.
Okay, you're done. You want a drink?
Yes, please.
You want to
not
start
done
with
either.
one? I won't grill you the same way. You've had a tough season. So,
We've turned the page.
okay, so what is your ideal as far as interaction with fans, information, how they act at the game?
I think we've talked about some of this already, both at the game and out of the game. You have to give them the content when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it. If they want it mobily, you're going to give it to them mobily. If they want it on their home computer through the web, you're going to give it to that one. If they're going to go out to the stadium. I think the advent of technology, and again, some of this we've talked about, we envision, maybe it's on your mobile device, but somehow that is your passport to your relationship with the New York Jets. And to the extent you're willing to share.
And there's a dialogue potentially,
There's a dialogue
right?
with the Jets. We know what you like. We know what you don't like. You've opted in to share that information with us.
When you leave the stadium, it's still going on. The
Again,
talking could potentially
that's
go on.
ultimately the vision. And what you do in exchange for that is you understand what they like, and you offer them more of that, or you give them an offer that they otherwise wouldn't get. So it is. I think you want to reward all your fans, but some of the more loyal fans. You'll give them more. You'll give them more benefits. The key is we sit thinking, what does a season ticket holder want? What should we offer them this year? What's this? The more choice you give them, they'll opt into it. If you're going to give them a benefits package, have a green package, have a white package. They're going to tell you what they want. Let them make that decision. They're not all the same, whether it's age, whether it's income, whether it's somebody who wants the up-close experience with touching a player, trying to get that, versus the person who just wants data. I want to be a fantasy football person and understand everything about the team. So you can categorize their generalities, but you'll know who those fans are, what they like, and then you just service them better. To me, that's the holy grail.
Bob, how do you get Apple to share? No, just kidding. What's
Never.
not happening, right?
Not happening. Not in
What's,
my lifetime.
What's the future for, what do you,
I just,
what
you
do
know, I
you
just
see?
throw out a cautionary note. I mean, we're all talking about data and information from customers. They've raised their hand and volunteered it. But at BAM anyway, it's first-party data. It's things that they do on our site or on our apps. We don't aggregate it and then say, here you go, to this sponsor or that sponsor. And
Like
I think
you're buying, you want to augment the money you're giving, we'll give you our information. Because there's pressure for that, right?
but it's an interesting, you know, and I dare say that there are a lot of places, including some that may have been speaking here today, that actually will take data and it will go other places. And so-called third-party data, where you sign up and you say it, and they might aggregate the data and they send it out, and you might get tracked,
Right.
and you might get retargeted. And those things, you know, so all of us who gather all this information from our incredibly loyal fans, and they are the lifeblood. You know, for us, selling a ticket is the mother's milk of our business, and we have to all be careful to make sure that this first-party information, it stays within our app or within our site, and we use it to service them better. Not necessarily, I would also say, to make more money, but just to give them more of what they want. They give us plenty of money. With technology, we have an opportunity to give them something back that they want, they've raised their hand for. And all of us have to be careful to make sure that we balance the privacy and the information against the economics. And there are economic issues, they're real, but if we ever lose the privacy battle, or the fact that this has to stay here and we don't really want everyone knowing what you do, it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Because if you burn someone once and they're like, how did this happen? How is Highland Mint sending me?
And
get
Ravel on
verification?
Twitter will have a field day saying, guess what BAM just did? And there'll be all those shots, and then we'll be off to the races. It'll be that all over again.
I'd like to thank everyone up here on stage for an awesome, lively panel. Hope this is what you guys out there expected, and we'll just continue to see how this evolves. Maybe we'll be back here next year and talking about all the Wi-Fi stadiums or anything else that's going on. But thanks again for coming out. Thanks, Sharon.